Hi, my name is Gerald Scott. Sometimes people call me Jerry. I'm a first year induction candidate with Keppel Union School District. I'm kindergarten teacher at Alpine Elementary School in Little Rock, California, in room 10. I'm going to briefly run over my portfolio with you. I chose a cover photo of educating with love and compassion because that speaks to me. That's a lot about what this profession is for me. You've got to love what you do. You've got to be compassionate for the students and realize we're all coming from different places and have a different story. It's followed by the table of contents with 16 entries. The introduction is where I elaborate on my class, the demographics and the dynamics of the class. I started out with 27 kindergartners. We had one student that was African American that was a foster student we lost just before the winter break. He returned to his legal mother, as far as I know. Let's see. And then we acquired another student from another school in November, with a severe ADHD condition that added a real interesting dynamic to the class that we all learned from. And we lost a student to Lake Los Angeles just before the winter break. And then I got two boys from one of the other kinder classes on the school campus here at Alpine. But ended up at the end of the year with 26. Of those, I had 8 girls. The rest were boys. The 8 girls happened to be good students, no behavior issues. But 18 boys was a challenge. There were some that need some work. They taught me a lot. Let's put it that way. I also had been living part of my job here. I had been living in Mexico for 6 years. And part of my goal was to immerse myself in the culture so that I could apply for my B-Clad in another year as my goal. And I thought by living there and being immersed in the culture, that it would be truly beneficial, especially since we have such high Hispanic populations in the California school system. And knew that would be a real asset for me. And let's see. So in conclusion, I've got 26 future first graders. They're a wonderful group of loving kids that have taught me much, and more than anything, they've stolen my heart. On the second page, the following page, I've got a picture, the class picture of us. And then below them, I have a picture of the classroom. You can see just what I said about sparse beginnings. We didn't have we replaced a retiring teacher. There were not a lot of materials or anything left in the classroom, and being new, I didn't have very much to bring to the class, and ended up using $1,000 of my own money, but we still fell short of a lot of materials that we needed. But over time, we were able to acquire the things that we needed to get the job done. My goal, my focus was CSTP1, which is engaging and supporting all students and learning. And that just really spoke to me. To me, that's the essence of this profession. And I thought this of all was the most important, or the basic one that had to be mastered. And as a professional, I know that goal setting is the key to master certain aspects of teaching. We've got a continuum grid here that goes from level 1, emerging, all the way to level 5, which is innovating. I was able to progress as far as integrating to level 4. So I was very pleased with that. I had a wonderful mentor. Number one, the emerging level is how that was acquired, was that I spoke to all of my colleagues. I communicated on a daily basis. I reached out to Miss Lopez, our kinder lead here, our co-teacher, Miss Pugh, Miss Mansour, our intervention specialist at the school, was a wonderful resource, was always willing to give me whatever information and advice she could from her experience, and she's got a lot of it. I use Miss Sanabria, my mentor, who happens to be right next door to me. Frequently went to her for questions and advice, especially about instruction. And I also tapped into the second grade team. We have a wonderful second grade team of teachers from Mrs. Rogers and Mrs. Castaneda. They were always only too helpful to offer anything they could as far as any advice or experience. And that addressed my level 1. Level 2 was use more manipulatives to enhance comprehension. What I tried to do in that was to make cultural connections. Well, not just with manipulatives, but with the instruction or whatever I used. And when there were stories about, and especially in a math problem where the farmer, had an apple orchard or oranges or whatever they happened to be, I would use frijoles, or I would use jalapenos. Real staples with the Mexican diet, or this for the Hispanic culture, and something they can relate to. It they can relate to it in their life. That's a condiment that's on the table just about at every meal. And so, that's how I can help drive it home and make those cultural connections with the students. That's just a little example of how I could do it. Level 3 was incorporate a variety of ways to show numbers. One thing that I was able to do was I purchased some really bright primary colored dice that I used sometimes to introduce the math lesson. It was a great way to get the kids excited and get them ready for the math lesson, to get them going with the numbers. And they're just regular dice. They're about 4 inches square, and they're foam, and they're bright colors, so they're not any risk that anyone would get hurt or they would damage anything with them. And we could roll them, or the students could roll them, and we could say who got the higher number, the lower number. So we could talk about greater than and less than. We could add, we could subtract. It was a real simple, easy, quick game to be able to initiate the math lesson. And also, it was also a reward for students that finished early, that they loved playing with those dice. So I would reward the students. The early finishers would get to use those also. So that worked really well. Level 4 incorporated the use of the Go Math personal trainer on the smartboard. Unfortunately, in this classroom, we really didn't have functioning technology other than my laptop until after winter break, for one problem or another. But it finally got resolved. And so when we came back from the winter break, I was able to teach the math lesson, the Go Math lesson, using the personal trainer that I learned about from our district grade level meetings that we'd have on occasion. And that's how I really found out about the benefits of it. And so I implemented it into my classroom, and it's an animated mouse cartoon format that would cover each lesson very, very plainly. And then you would answer a few problems, and then the students go back to their desk and work on it. So I would call them to the floor, play the video, we'd watch it, we'd discuss it, answer the questions. They'd go back to their tables. There's a captain that was responsible that all the papers were complete and everyone had their name on, and then that freed me up to do more monitoring and observing at each of the tables. I could easily make any adjustments I needed to, so that they were all equitable. I didn't want them to be too lopsided as far as the high achievers and low achievers. So I was able to really balance that out by easily moving the students around to tables to keep it fair. And that seemed to work really well. The enthusiasm went up incredibly. All but one student seemed to really enjoy it, and he happened to be the student in the class that was the strongest in all subjects all year long. Just an ideal student, but he was very quiet and timid, so he didn't really respond well to all the enthusiasm that was created in the math lesson. But I checked with him every day to make sure that he was okay, and to comfort him and let him know it was okay, so that he didn't get upset, and it didn't reflect in his performance. He did well. He started in first and finished in first in the class, so it didn't negatively impact him. Let's see, and then the following page, we talk about the WAM assessment. It's a basic math fact assessment that the school uses, and there's a total of 72 assessments, well, that had been administered, and my starting point for the goal was 27 assessments. I had 27 assessments passed out of 72 assessments that had been administered, making the current proficiency marker at 58%. So the goal was move the proficiency marker to 60% by the end of the first trimester, which was November 8th. Well, that was easily done, and I will go into elaborate on that on the following page. But part of my goal was also to include two novice English speakers. I'll call them Melanie and Giovanni. They both started out the year speaking no English at all in class. And fortunately, I had the Spanish speaking background, and I could communicate with those students effectively. and was able to always make sure that they understood what I was teaching the rest of the class. After I would give the instruction in English, I would go to those two and speak to them directly in Spanish to make sure that they understood what the task was. And over time, I gradually weaned them of that so that they would be less dependent on me and their native language, so that they would acquire more of the English language. And they have continued throughout the year to show steady improvement, and they've both soared to the upper third of the class, and I feel they're both going to be very, very, very successful individuals, especially once they master the English language. There'll be nothing stopping either one of them. They're very, very motivated students. So I implemented some strategies I learned from attending the time management professional development as well. And one of those most beneficial to me was the OWL time, and that's optimal window of learning. And by applying that in my classroom, I was able to speed up the curriculum, because with the little ones, the attention span is so short, you can't dwell on a lesson or something for too long because you'll lose them. And I learned that the hard way. So the OWL time was something that was very valuable, that I was able to pick up from that training and bring it back into my classroom and use it effectively and see the results, the rewards of using that. And then the following page is a picture of the chart showing the goal baseline score, trimester 1 and trimester 2. Well, the goal was 60% mastery, and the baseline score was 58%. By trimester 2, we'd have 65% mastery, and the baseline score was 60% mastery. So we ended the goal with a 68% mastery. And my class began to show tremendous growth, and because they started to achieve mastery, including at one point being at 95%. Then I've got some photos of student work to model what was some of the achievements that were made in the class. I've got Giovanni, my Spanish-speaking student. His first chapter test, he achieved 11 points out of a possible 30. By chapter 4, he achieved 26 points out of 29. So that showed a significant improvement. And then I have Melanie below him. On chapter 1, she acquired 19 points out of 30. And by her chapter 5 test, she was able to get 100%. So that was really, really, really something. Very thrilled about those results. I picked 2 other students in the class. Ian, just an average student, he got 17 out of 30 on this chapter 1 test. And by chapter 4, he had 28 out of 29. So again, significant improvement. Aiden was a low student in the class. He started out with 14 out of 30 on chapter 1 test. And by chapter 3, he had gotten 20 out of 22. So that was, again, a significant improvement even for him. And in summary, if I reflect on the year, my students and I came into a completely different classroom in time, to one that was rather chaotic and frantic in the beginning, to one that had routines established, order, and goals, and was able to implement the use of technology eventually in the classroom that really enhanced instruction. After that, COVID-19 hit us when we were left for spring break, and originally we had been told that we would be back to school, or hoped to be, by May 4th. So I was concerned about the students being gone that long and keeping them going. So I was brainstorming to come up with something to motivate them. And I came up with the McDonald's challenge. I got Mrs. Erdrich's approval on it. That I told the students when we came back on the 4th that all students that finished rainbow words, all whiz wham math quizzes, and all 19 lessons of I Read would qualify for going to lunch at McDonald's with the teacher. Well, that ended up being a horse race and was very exciting. And I was able to coach and cheer the students on a daily basis. As each student achieved that goal, I announced it to everyone on Dojo, and they all knew about it. And I would tell them who are the next 2 or 3 in line, and who would be the next one to win, to really keep up the enthusiasm. And it just worked out wonderfully. I've been thrilled with the results of it, and it continues to this day. And I think I'm going to get a really good results at the end of this. And due to the situation, they know that we may not be able to do it soon, but I've assured them that once the district and the state and their parents say we can do it, we will do it. If this happens to be over an extended amount of time, the social distancing, then I'll be forced to just buy them meal ticket cards from McDonald's for Happy Meals or something and distribute those, or something to that effect, because I will keep my word with them. And I just want to say it's been a wonderful year. I've learned a lot. I'm excited and looking forward to doing it all again next year and being so much better at it. And I thank you for your time. Take care.